The day before the wedding, my fiancé's first love asked to have his name printed on the invitation. With a thession, she agreed and even put my name in the corner. Even my mother-in-law tacitly approved of her outrageous behavior. As a result, at the wedding, the bride's family and guests mistook her first love for the groom and treated me, the actual groom, like a freeloader crashing the banquet, then kicked me out. I didn't argue or try to prove who I was. I turned around and chose to leave at the end of the wedding. My fiancé texted me an app, "Edward, where are you? Come back. The hotel needs the final payment, fourth wedding. 1.88 million yuan. Hurry and pay." I blocked her number without a second thought. Garbage. Out of sight, out of mind. You say you're the groom, then why isn't your name on the invitation? Today was the day Daphne and I were getting married. Yet the groom was stopped outside the banquet hall. The staff insisted my name wasn't on the invitation and refused to let me in. Was probably the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. I tried to explain, that's impossible. Of course, my name is next to Daphne's. I picked up an invitation from the table to prove me identity, but the moment I opened it, my voice stopped. Next to Daphne's name, written in clear bold letters, was another man's name, Sebastian. I knew that name all too well. During my 4 years with Daphne, I'd heard it more times than I could count. He was her first love, the one she could never forget. She always brought him up when I made mistakes. In her eyes, Sebastian was perfect. About 2 weeks ago, while Daphne and I were preparing for the wedding, she suddenly told me she wanted to invite Sebastian. Though it made me uncomfortable, I didn't object. To me, he represented her youth, her past, something she simply couldn't let go of. But the next day, I happened to glimpse a message on her phone. It was a text from an unfamiliar number filled with suggestive language. "I can't believe you're getting married already. Remember how we once promised to have each other's name on our wedding invites? Are you really going to break that promise now?" I immediately knew it was from Sebastian. Still, I didn't confront Daphne. I trusted her. After all, we'd been together for 4 years, but now, this invitation in my hand was nothing like the one I'd seen at home. Daphne had changed the design and really did place Sebastian's name beside hers. So, what about me? As the actual groom of this wedding, where was my name? Oh, found it. Amelia, come look. Maybe this is Thiga's name. An older lady with reading glasses squinted at the invitation for a long while, then pointed to a tiny corner with her pen. They leaned in together, eyebrows finally relaxing. Wow, that's tiny. If you hadn't pointed it out, I'd have thought it was an ant. I clutched the invitation tightly and saw at last my name tucked in the fastener. The woman's sarcastic tone ignited my anger, but I held on to the last shred of my rationality. She wasn't one to blame. Daphne was, but Daphne was in the dressing room inside, and I couldn't even get through the door. I was an orphan. I had no relatives attending. Only Daphne's side of the family was invited. In 4 years, I'd only ever met her parents. I tried showing my chat history with Daphne to prove who I was. But Amelia scoffed and sneered. Everyone knows chat logs can be faked nowadays. You think we're clueless old folks who don't know how the internet works. I was desperate. My mouth dry from explaining, but they still wouldn't let me in. Just then, I looked up and saw Daphne's mother walking out in a hurry. My eyes lit up and I waved at her. "Mom, please help. These ladies won't let me in." I expected her to rush over the moment she heard me, but she only glanced my way, frowned slightly, then turned around, and walked off as if she didn't even know me. "Haha, Mom," he says. "Kid, don't go around calling strangers family. Here's some advice. Son, get a proper job. Don't go around freeloading at weddings." Amelia rolled her eyes and quickly turned to greet other guests with a new smile. I couldn't understand Daphne's mother suddenly acted like a stranger. I called Daphne, but instead of her gentle voice, I was greeted by a cold, robotic tone. I stood frozen, phone in hand, in utter disbelief. On our wedding day, my bride had blocked him. What on earth is going on? All the messages I sent to Daphne vanished into a void. No reply at all. I stood at the entrance of the exhibition hall, and everyone walking by pointed and whispered about me. Their murmurs reached my ears, making me more and more agitated. Just then, the 2 older women in front of me suddenly widened their eyes and stood up abruptly. "Oh my, isn't this the groom? Look at that handsome face." Smiling brightly, they shoved me aside and rushed to greet someone behind me. I turned around in confusion, only to see a man in a white suit surrounded by the crowd. He had a charming smile, perfectly styled hair slicked back with gel and a boutonniere on his chest. He certainly looked more like a groom than I did. I'd seen his face before in Daphne's high school photos. I recognized him instantly. Sebastian, Daphne's first love. My rage, simmering all this time, finally had a target. He charged at Sebastian in one swift motion and grabbed him by the collar. Gasps erupted from the surrounding uncles and aunties. "Sebastian, this is all you're doing, isn't it?" Sebastian kept his eyes looking at me with blatant disdain, as if I were just an insignificant insect. "My doing, Edward, you're giving me too much credit. Have you ever considered that Daphne did all of this herself? Sebastian's voice dropped low, but each word pierced through my chest like an arrow. I merely joked about wanting my name next to hers in the invitation, and she didn't hesitate for a second to shove yours into a corner. And haven't you noticed that there's no photo of you to anywhere on the invitations or here at the venue? Isn't it obvious? This whole wedding is just a farce. Daphne used to throw so she could marry me in spirit. He grabbed my wrists, and as I stood frozen in shock, peeled my fingers off one by one. Yuck, no, Edward, you really are pathetic. For years, together, and you still couldn't make Daphne forget me. If I were you, I'd have found a rope and ended it by now. Daphne still hasn't forgotten him. Then, what were our 4 years together worth? All around me, people were bustling about, but in my mind, flashes of my time with Daphne played back in painful clarity. I first met her during a student council meeting. She was a freshman then. I was already the student council president. I still remember it was my birthday. As an orphan, birthdays were nothing more than dates. Just the day I entered the orphanage, not my real birthday. I'd never celebrated one. But that day, when I walked into the meeting room, it was dark. I flipped on the lights only to see everyone holding a cake, standing in the center, shouting, "Happy birthday!" That surprise had been genuine, and when I found out it was Daphne who suggested it, just because she'd seen my file and remembered the date, that was the moment I fell for her. I thought it was the beginning of a romantic love story, but no, it seems it was the start of my nightmare. I stood dazed as a voice from the crowd questioned, "Sebastian, do you know this guy? He's acting like a lunatic, claiming to be today's groom." Sebastian still wore his smug smile. His lips moved slowly. Him probably just a mentally unstable beggar. With that, he turned and walked into the hall. I tried to follow, but was blocked. A group of aunties formed the human wall in front of me. They looked me up and down, expressions of disgust on their faces. Oh, so that's who he is? Just some crazy beggar. And he's dressed so well, too. Did he steal those clothes? Wouldn't be. Maybe he stole them from one of us. Their voices were sharp, taunting, and mocking. They even covered their noses slightly, as if I smelled bad. My fists clenched tightly by my sides. I repeated myself, "I really am the groom. If you don't believe me, I'll show you photos of me and Daphne." I pulled out my phone, trying to find pictures in the album, but before I could open them, one of the women in a dark red dress snatched the phone from my hands. Wow, even beggars use phones this fancy now. Society is really going downhill. As she spoke, she tried to stuff the phone into her purse. One immediately reached out to grab it back, give it back. But before I could even touch her, she let out a piercing scream. "As someone help. This beggar is trying to grope me." Her scream instantly caught the attention of a group of uncles smoking outside Pointone. By one, they stubbed out their cigarettes and walked toward us, brows furrowed. "What's going on here?" one of the older men asked in a low voice. Just as I was about to explain, the auntie beside me cut in first. "This man's a crazy beggar. Not only is he claiming to be the groom, but he's also trying to ruin the wedding." With that single sentence, she completely nailed me to the cross as a beggar. I hurried to open my mouth and explain, but they didn't give me a chance. A beggar, a tall man, must have been 6'3" and walked up and grabbed me by the collar. He looked me up and down and sneered, "Dressed this well for a beggar? What? Trying to marry into money? Bro, if you ask me, those clothes actually suit you." "Yeah, I think so too." He and the guy next to him kept bantering, not giving me a single chance to speak. Before I could react, the tall man started tugging at my suit jacket. I instantly kicked him in the leg, taking advantage of his pain to step back a few feet, glaring at him defensively. "What are you doing? You're trying to rob me in front of all these people. You're a beggar." "This isn't robbery. It's just taking back what doesn't belong to you." A group of them surrounded me. They grabbed my arms and pinned me in place. I struggled, with all my might, trying to escape this humiliation. But the more I resisted, the harder they held me. I didn't know who threw the first punch, but my vision exploded with stars and pain seared through my skull. Then fist after fist rained down on me, leaving me powerless to fight back. I collapsed to the ground. Eventually, a small red velvet box fell from my pocket. The auntie in red snatched it up immediately. Inside was the ring I had prepared for Daphne. Her eyes lit up. "Wow, where did this beggar steal such a fancy ring from?" Her eyes darted quickly, and without hesitation, she slipped the box into her pocket and pointed at me, shouting, "It's him. He stole my ring and I just caught him. Get this thief out of here." I stared at her in disbelief, questioning even my own hearing. "No, that's not true." Battering. But again, no one let me speak. Another punch landed on my face, and he went down hard. Hearing the commotion, the venue security rushed over. After hearing the full story, they immediately headed in my direction. At that moment, my heart was filled not just with fury, but with utter humiliation. I clenched my teeth, glaring hatefully at the people around me, every one of them with devilish smiles on their faces. "You'll regret this, regret. What can a beggar like you do to us?" The auntie scoffed, trying to force the ring onto her swollen finger. She failed, so she carefully tucked the ring back into Hirsch's pocket. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Mia walking out of the reception hall. My eyes lit up instantly. Mia was Daphne's friend. She had to recognize me. Mia, I shouted her name, afraid she might pretend not to hear me like Daphne's mother did. But thankfully, Mia stopped and walked over, brows furrowed. Hope flared up in my chest again. Mia, please explain to them that who is this guy? Get rid of him. The ceremony's about to start. Her words crushed the last flicker of hope in my heart. The security guards by my side heard her and immediately moved to drag me away. I stared at her in disbelief, but she only gave me a mocking smile and mouthed something. I read her lips. You deserve it. Only then did I realize Maya was getting revenge on me because I had once turned down her romantic advances. In the end, I was thrown out of the hall by security. The moment I hit the ground, it felt like my organs were being displaced. The aunties and uncles were still standing at the entrance. Someone spat at me. Pa, what a jinx, get lost already. Cacophony of noises buzzed in my ears. My phone was toasted beside me, screen shattered into pieces. Worthless junk, just like you. My suit jacket had been stripped off. The hair I'd carefully styled now looked like a bird's nest. Everything that happened today felt like a dream, a nightmare. I thought today I would marry the woman I loved. Instead, I was brutally humiliated and forced to accept the fact that Daphne never truly loved me. The 4 years I cherished, every memory to Daphne, none of it ever meant a thing. I walked aimlessly down the street, ignoring the curious looks people cast my way. Eventually, I stopped in front of a Western-style restaurant. This was the place where I had proposed to Daphne. It had only been a few months since then, but it felt like a lifetime ago. A waiter from inside the restaurant recognized me and quickly came over. Mr. Edward, what happened to you? Isn't today your wedding day? I gave a bitter smile and waved him off. I had bought this restaurant half a year ago, secretly bemoaning the owner, all because Daphne liked it. I planned to give it to her as a wedding gift after the ceremony. But it seemed that gift would never reach her. Just as I was about to explain, my phone suddenly rang. That caller was Daphne. After a brief moment of hesitation, I picked up. Her voice shrieked through the receiver, nearly piercing my eardrum. Edward, where are you? Come back now. The hotel wants you to pay the remaining balance for the wedding. 1.88 million. Come back and pay it. Her tone was full of command. I let out a cold laugh and asked, what shouldn't the people getting married be the ones paying? Why should I foot double when I'm not even the groom? I'd started my own business in my 3rd year of university. For years had passed, not wildly successful, but I was doing decently well. Since I had no family growing up, I'd always treated Daphne as Sumione, incredibly important. Even her parents, I treated them as my own and showed them the utmost respect. A wedding is the most important event in a woman's life. So, I gave it my all just to make her happy. But that didn't mean I was a fool. After everything she'd done to me today, there was no way I'd still follow her every word. Maybe she sensed the anger in my voice because her tone softened considerably when she spoke again. Edward, what happened today was my mistake. I didn't expect it to end up like this. But legally you're Estal, my husband. I just wanted to fulfill a regret from my youth. That's all, a regret. To hell with her regret. I'd spent over $2 million on that wedding venue. Not so she could relive her teenage fantasies. In my mind, I was already cursing her to high heaven, but on the outside, I pretended to be persuaded. After pretending to hesitate, I said, fine, wait for me there. I'm on my way. Knew you loved me the most, baby. Daphne cooed through the phone. I let out a silent mocking laugh. After hanging up, the waiter beside me asked hesitantly, Mr. Edward, are you really going back? Go back. My ass. I wasn't stooped. There was no way I'd actually go back and pay that money. I only said that to Daphne as a bit of revenge for what she did earlier. I called a taxi and went straight home, blocking all of Daphne's contact info along the way. Back at my apartment, I didn't waste any time. I packed up all of Daphne's things and dumped them downstairs. I lived in a luxury apartment complex with tight security. Thankfully, I bought the place in my own name. Otherwise, I wouldn't even have had the chance to kick Daphne out. I called the property management and informed them about the breakup, telling them not to let her in next time she showed up. About 3 hours later, the doorbell rang. I pressed the screen and saw Daphne's furious face appear. She'd been stopped at the entrance. Her once flawless makeup was a mess, and if you looked closely, there were even a few scratch marks on her face. She must have caused another scene at the hotel. Edward, what the hell? It was our wedding day, and you left me there humiliated. Do you know I maxed out every credit card just to cover that payment? Her voice was shrill. She wasn't even in front of me, but I could still feel her rage. I rubbed my ear, sore from the yelling, and said with a laugh, our wedding, Miss Daphne, you must be mistaken. Wasn't Sebastian your groom today? What does any of this have to do with me? What? Just because Sebastian couldn't cover the 1.88 million, now you want to come crawling back to me? After hearing this, her tone softened again. Edward, I know you're mad about what happened today, but listen to me. There's nothing between Sebastian and me anymore. Today was just an accident. If you really mind, we can just hold another ceremony. Yeah, dream on. Did she really think I was some kind of emotional recycling bin? Daphne, save your dreaming for bedtime. We're done. I was about to hang up when she exploded again, her face twisted with fury like she wanted to swallow me whole. Edward, you just wait. Click, I hung up without hesitation. And that very night, I found out exactly what Daphne was planning. She started a live stream, crying on camera and telling the world I'd left her alone at the altar. We were together for 4 years, and I never realized what kind of person he really was. Not only did he abandon me at our wedding, he even made me pay the final balance myself. I just wanted an explanation, but who would have thought he threw all my things out of the house? Daphne cried into the live stream, her face a mess of tears and mucus. If I weren't directly involved, I might have actually believed her lies. Those nosy aunts and relatives at the wedding, who treated me like a beggar and kicked me out, also came forward to vouch for Daphne. They painted my forced departure as if I had heartlessly abandoned her, and not a single one of them mentioned Sebastian. Mother sat beside her, pulling her into an embrace, and looked into the camera, speaking sincerely. We're not doing this live stream to get that money back. We just want an explanation. My daughter is a good, decent girl. She's been with you for years. How can you just toss her aside like that? Do rich people really think they can ruin others' lives without consequence? Viewers in the live stream were clearly brainwashed by Daphne. They all sided with her, demanding justice, and launched vicious personal attacks against me. This bizarre drama quickly drew even more attention. Overnight, not only was my full name dug up, but my business was exposed as well. The company was hit hard by the public backlash, and even our stock prices took a hit. But what enraged me the most wasn't any of that. It was the fact that even the orphanage I grew up in wasn't spared. In recent years, the orphanage's financial situation had worsened. To support the children, the director had started a social media account to share their daily life and attract kind-hearted donors. After I found success, I donated to the orphanage every year. But now hordes of netizens flooded the orphanage's videos with hate comments. What kind of orphanage raises someone like Edward? Bet he used the donations to fund his company. You can tell that little boy is going to grow up to be a criminal just by looking at him. The comments were endless and vile. Even when the director tried to livestream, the screen was flooded with obscenities. Eventually, he had no choice but to shut down the stream. Yet even then, he didn't blame me. Instead, he turned around and tried to comfort me. After a full day of this online frenzy, I received a call from Daphne. Her tone was smug and arrogant. So, Edward realized your mistake now, haven't you? I looked at the phone that was recording our call and smirked. What exactly do you want? At first, I just wanted that 1.88 million from feuding, she said. But now, it's not that simple. I want the apartment under your name, and on top of that, I want another 2 million in emotional damages. You embarrassed me in front of all those people. Do you know how humiliated I felt? Daphne was making outrageous stints. It was basically extortion. I replied calmly. That's a lot of money. I'll need some time to get it together. She paused for a moment, then agreed confidently. Fine, I'll give you 3 more days, but if you lie to me, I'll make sure you never recover from this. After hanging up, I saved the call recording. It would have been easy to expose her lies, but that wasn't my ultimate goal. I glanced at Sebastian's dossier sitting on my desk, and my smirk grew colder. The reason Daphne and Sebastian broke up back then was a cliché. Her family thought he was too poor and forced them apart. Since then, Sebastian had worked hard to earn money, but unfortunately in all the wrong ways. He even developed a gambling addiction. He only came back now because he was broke again and wanted to use Daphne for a quick payday. High-interest loan sharks were currently hunting Sebastian down, and I had no problem lending them a hand. I chose the most intimate photo of Sebastian and Daphne I could find, slipped it into an envelope, and had Simeon mail it to them. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Daphne, still without her money, called me again. Edward, you bastard. Where's the money you promised? Leaning back in my chair, I hit enter on my keyboard. Relax, Daphne, go online. I left you a little surprise. I had gotten the restaurant owner to give me the surveillance footage from that day's banquet hall. I uploaded it along with the full audio recording of our earlier call. Daphne blew up instantly. The plot twist hit the internet like a bombshell. Nobody saw it coming. Wait, what? The groom at the wedding wasn't even him. No wonder he didn't want to pay. She totally cheated on him. I knew there was more to this story, but y'all wouldn't listen. Wow, her relatives were no better. They practically stripped the poor guy naked on the spot. What the hell? She's like Alec Cast, wants everything. In an instant, Daphne and her outrageous relatives went viral. On the other end of the line, Daphne was screaming curses like a mad woman. "F you, Edward. You think you can play dirty with me? You bastard. I swear, I'll kill you." I had no interest in listening to her rant, so I simply hung up. Daphne tried to salvage her image online, but this time no one believed a word she said. What's more, some of her former classmates started exposing the truth online. They revealed that Daphne and Sebastian had been high school sweethearts already dating during their school years. And it's not just that. At our last class reunion, Sebastian already knew Daphne was engaged, and he still tried to hook up with her. They disappeared for over half an hour together. Who knows what they were doing? Maybe they were already sleeping together back then. Ah, first love. So sweet and nostalgic. Sweet, my ass. Daphne was already a mess back in school, always flirting with guys. Exactly, half the boys in school had something going on with her. She's the type that can't live without a man. The gossip about Daphne online grew increasingly vicious. Many of the posts even crossed the line into vulgar sexual rumors. With truth and lies so deeply mixed, who could even tell the difference anymore? I stopped paying attention to the internet and focused on work until the end of the day. But just as I stepped out of the office, a shadow lunged at me. I looked closely. Turns out it was Daphne. She was wearing a hat and mask, hiding herself tightly. After all, she was now a minor internet celebrity. But the eyes peeking out were filled with rage and resentment. "Edward, how could you do this to me?" Daphne lowered her voice and questioned me angrily. I found it amusing. Some people really do live by a double standard. They can dish it out, but they can't take it. Keeping a safe distance, I asked in return, "Why shouldn't I do this to you?" "Daphne, when you told those lies, did you ever think about how I felt? When you exchanged vows with Sebastian in front of the officiant, did you consider my feelings? So why do you expect me to care about yours now?" Daphne was rendered speechless, but she still clung stubbornly to the edge of her eyes were bloodshot, and she looked borderline deranged. "So what? You still owe me as my boyfriend. You should accept everything about me. You shouldn't." Get to finish her absurd rant. Suddenly, a van screeched to a stop behind her. 3 burly men jumped out and grabbed Daphne right off the ground. Both of us were caught off guard. "What are you doing? Who are you people? Let go of me." Daphne struggled violently, screaming like a lunatic. Passers-by began to look our way. One of the men turned and smiled apologetically to the crowd. "Sorry everyone, I'm her brother. My sister has some mental issues. Don't know what got into her. Today, ran away from home. We're just here to take her back." "Mental issues? I don't even know you people. Let go of me." Daphne fought even harder, kicking her legs wildly in the air. But she was no match for the 2 men holding her. Eventually, Wench was completely exhausted. She turned her pleading eyes toward me. "Edward, Edward, help me." The 3 men turned to look at me. I touched the tip of my nose, smiled, and said, "I don't know her. Probably just a crazy homeless woman." As Daphne was dragged into the van, the look she gave me was filled with utter despair. Daphne disappeared, and since I was the last person seen with her, the police questioned me thoroughly. I told them everything that had happened that day, truthfully. When asked why I didn't try to help her, I looked the officer in the eye and answered calmly, "There were 3 of them. 4, if you count the driver. Even if I wanted to help her, it should be without putting my own life at risk, right?" The police couldn't argue with that, and since I also provided Thevon's license plate number and descriptions of the men involved, they only gave me a brief lecture before letting me go. As I stepped out of the interrogation room, I saw Daphne's parents waiting outside. They looked like they had aged years overnight. I still hands tightly clasped together. When they heard footsteps, they looked up in unison. The moment Daphne's mother saw me, she sprang to her feet and rushed over. She raised her hand to hit me, but was stopped by a nearby officer. "You murderer, killer. If it weren't for you, my daughter would still be fine. Why didn't you help her?" "Why?" Daphne's mother screamed hysterically, tears, and snot streaming down her face. I stood my ground, looking at her with calm eyes. "Did you ever help me?" She froze when she heard my words, then collapsed onto the ground and began to wail. I walked around her and left the police station without looking back and without the slightest bit of pity. Eventually, the police found Daphne. The men who had kidnapped her were brought to justice and punished accordingly. But in just a few short days, Daphne looked like she had been through hell. Her cheeks were sunken and her eyes had become blank, and through interrogating the kidnappers, the police learned that it was Sebastian who had revealed Daphne's whereabouts to loan sharks, which led to her abduction. The authorities then began to search for Sebastian. When they finally found him, he was lying on the ground covered in blood. 2 of his fingers were gone. 1 of his kidneys had been removed. Worst of all, his genitals appeared to have been subjected to inhumane torture. I went to the hospital to see them. The moment Daphne saw me, she started drooling uncontrollably. The doctor said she had been so severely traumatized that she had become mentally disabled. As for Sebastian, he would now live the rest of his life with a catheter and colostomy bag. After everything was settled, I took some time to visit the orphanage. The director and the children were all happy to see me. Thankfully, none of the kids there had been affected by everything that happened. The director said that the ordeal had brought more attention to the orphanage, and as a result, more donations had come in once it was over. A silver lining in an otherwise dark cloud. But when I was about to leave, the director held my hand and sighed repeatedly. "Sigh, just wonder who will end up being your wife one day. Will I live long enough to see you get married?" I've never been good at handling her matchmaking talk. So, I found an excuse and slipped away quickly. But maybe it really was the wish that worked some kind of magic. That autumn-winter season, I met a woman who truly moved my heart. She was the CEO of a competing company. Even though we were rivals, the confidence and brilliance she displayed whenever spoke completely captivated me. I started pursuing her, and finally, after 2 months, I won her heart. She was nothing like Daphne. She never clung to me, always stood strong on her own, brave and independent. We made plans to celebrate the new year together. But just as we stepped out of the Western restaurant, I spotted 2 familiar figures by the roadside. Sebastian had a bag strapped to his waist, and in his hand, he held a leash. At the other end of the leash was Daphne. I later heard that Daphne's parents, thinking no one else would marry her, had forced Sebastian to take her as his wife. Now his face was full of disgust and bitterness. Yet he still clung tightly to that leash. In a way, wasn't this also a form of holding hands till the end? "What is it? What are you looking at?" "Nothing. Are you cold?" I took off my coat and draped it over her shoulders,